What's up, guys? Welcome to the Dad Edge podcast. I'm Larry Hagner. I am your host and founder, and welcome to Dad Edge Nation, where we are helping men create legendary lives. Legendary lives within their marriage, within their parenting, within leadership, within their physical, mental, and emotional health. All these things that we're actually just not taught. And hey, if you're here, welcome to the movement. We've been doing this now since 2015. And really the premise of today's show is I've got a few announcements here at the end that you will not want to miss pertaining to our live event that we're going to be doing in October. But let's actually get to why you're here. We're going to be talking about a couple things here. And that is how to be better with our patience, not to have knee-jerk reactions when it comes to our kids, and how to deal with failure. Because when we fail, there's two things that happen when we fail. When we fail, we feel the pain of failure. And number two, we just beat ourselves up mentally and emotionally for failing. But what if we looked at failure just a little bit different? Because we've all failed. And what if we looked at failure as an opportunity to learn and pivot? So I'm going to be sharing a couple stories with you guys today that are humbling. They're hard to share, but that's what this movement's all about. It's about authenticity. It's about vulnerability. It's about sharing the good stuff. It's not about the highlight reel, but it's also sharing the dark moments. Okay. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't get an email or a message from 1 or 20 people who listen to the show. Just depends on the day. And I get these super authentic emails of men and what they're dealing with and what's going on in their life. And I got to tell you, I welcome that stuff because it's not easy to type up an email to somebody you don't know and share some of the darkest things that are going on in your life. And it could be anything. It could be, I don't know if I want to live anymore, or it could be, I just screamed and yelled at my 3-year-old and lost my patience. So I want to share the patience aspect first, and then I'm going to go to the failure aspect next. So let's talk about patience first. I got an email from a listener. It's a super authentic email. I'm not going to read it, but I will give you the themes. The email basically stated this in the subject line: I screamed at my 3-year-old and I need to find a new job. I mean, who's not going to open that email? I screamed at my 3-year-old and now I need to find a new job. So I had an email from a listener who basically, in the premise of the email, he shared how he completely lost his cool on his 3-year-old, screamed, yelled. I don't know exactly what the 3-year-old did. He didn't mention that, but screamed, yelled, lost his patience, felt terrible, shamed himself, guilt himself, scared the crap out of his 3-year-old, and then apologized. But in the second part of the email, he shared with me, hey, I have a job that I hate, and this job is impacting how I respond to my kids because my stress level is so high, right? And that's super common, right? That is a super common thing to have. If you don't love what you do, and if your job is high stress, like a lot of men are, your level of patience is going to take a beating for it. Okay. Now, that's not to excuse, hey, I have a horrible job and I'm stressed out, so that's why I'm losing my patience. You can actually separate the two. But before I get into that, let me just share a statistic with you guys. A recent poll surveyed among men between the ages of 25 and 50 who work in some sort of corporate workforce, 82% of men today don't like what they do for a living. And they identify what they do as a living as not loving what they do and high stress. 8.2 out of 10 men don't like what they do for a living. That's going to create stress for any man. But that also doesn't excuse the fact that we need to have patience, which I would also tie to emotional resilience in our life. Because when we blow up at our kids, it doesn't matter. They don't care if we have a job that we hate. All they know is we just blew up at them. So let me share a story. Dad Edge didn't start on the prettiest note. In 2012, before I really started this movement, because the movement didn't start till 2013, but I had one of the darkest moments that I've ever had as a father. And that's how Good Dad Project / Dad Edge started. It started that night. So I was raised in this super chaotic environment. I won't get into all the details, but I'll give you the 30,000 foot view for those of you who haven't heard it. My mom was married 3 times over the course of 21 years of my life. I didn't know my biological father. They were married for a few years. They had me. He exited my life. When I was 12, he re-entered my life for a very short period of time in 6 months and then exited again. And I didn't actually start a relationship with my father until I was 30 because I ran into him just by a total accident, by chance, at a Starbucks here in St. Louis. Now, here we are 16 years later, and we've got a great relationship. The past is the past. I've put that behind us, and so has he. And we've got a great relationship now. But here's what I can tell you. Every man that my mom was married to and every guy that she dated was toxic and was a bit of a mess. And there was chaos going on all the time. There was a lot of drinking. There was a lot of yelling. There was beatings, all this stuff. And I made an agreement with myself that this is not going to happen on my watch when I become a father. And then I had a really dark moment with my 4-year-old. You know, what we focus on will expand. What we resist will persist. And I got to tell you, for the first 6 years of me being a father I wouldn't call it a waste, but it was really hard because I had no roadmap. I had no skill set. You know, if you really think about the 5 elements that we help men optimize, managing their personal finances, optimizing physical, mental, emotional health, creating a legendary marriage, connection with your kids, and becoming the leader you were meant to be, those 5 areas. The only one I was really thriving in was my career, which, you know, is really, really tied to leadership within what you do for a living or leading yourself. And I was basically just leading in the company that I worked for at the time. I was good at my job. That's where I got all my validation. Everything else was pretty much a wreck. Connection with my kids wasn't great. I did fatherhood from an arm's length. I didn't have a very good connection with my wife. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, we were probably operating at about a 4. When it came to my physical health, I was okay. Mental and emotional health, I was not the best at all. And that spilled over into my relationships. Money management, had no clue how to do that. You know, I knew algebra in high school, right? We get taught algebra in high school, but I'm not sure about you guys, but I never got a course on personal finance. So let me get to the story. My 4-year-old, he's 13 now, but he was 4 at the time. He stepped out of line one night. I spanked him out of anger. It was total reactionary. There was no space that I created between what he was doing and my reaction. I just had this knee-jerk reaction, and I spanked him. Now, much like the guy who emailed me, the work that I was doing, even though I was good at it, I didn't necessarily love it. And it was a high-stress environment, medical device sales. So I was constantly stressed. I was constantly felt the pressure, right? And I was also the breadwinner. So I felt that tension and stress of providing for my family. So I spanked him when he did this. Knee-jerk reaction. And what happened next was really hard to see. He hit the ground. I spanked him so hard. I shocked and shamed, and I went to help him up. And he looked at me like I was a monster. That's hard to share. That's a moment that I am not proud of. And up to that point, I had not hit him. But the fact that he looked at me in that way, that like I was a monster, that was tough. Knowing that I had never hit him up to that point, a 4-year-old can still feel the energy of tension. A 4-year-old can still feel the energy of a father that doesn't have the skill set of patience or grace. A 4-year-old, and it doesn't matter how old our kids are, they feel what type of energy we're creating in the house. If we're always stressed out, if we're overwhelmed, if we are quietly tense, our kids pick up on that. And it makes them fearful because they don't feel safe. That's not to say that we have to be executing at the highest level of patience and grace and attitude at all times, but we've got to be able to have a high batting average when it comes to that stuff, right? When we get up to bat, we want to be having good moments, 7, 8 out of 10 times versus the other way around. So I went to pick him up. He was crying. And just like this gentleman who emailed me about his 3-year-old, I apologized. And I felt terrible. And I thought to myself, what am I doing? What am I doing? I am literally repeating exactly what happened to me. The promise that I made, the agreement I made to myself is not happening. This needs to change. And it was that night I went into my office and I did what every adult does when they have an overwhelming moment. I got on Facebook because I didn't want to think about it. I just wanted to distract myself. I was literally in tears as I sat there on my computer and I saw this button that said create a page. I don't know what it is that was in me at the moment. Call it divine intervention. I'm strong with my faith. I think that had a lot to do with it. But the words Good Dad Project just rolled off my mind and heart and onto that keyboard. And I started that page. And I didn't do it for a following. I didn't do it for attention. I didn't do it for any other reason than to stake a flag in the ground and say, this is where my learning begins. And basically all I was going to do at that page was just share something I was learning every day. Because in that moment, I made a commitment. I'm going to learn something new every day. I'm always so eager to learn skills in my business as it pertains to sales or leadership or whatever else. But why am I so resistant to learn skills within my marriage and within my kids and in those relationships? I don't understand that. So I made a point to be like, hey, I'm going to learn this stuff. And all these things, man, they are skills. They're skills. They're not feelings. Many of us think that, I love my kids, so it should come naturally. That's not the case. I love my wife. We're meant to be together, so that should be easy. That's not the case. These things are skills that we have to learn. So I made an oath to myself. I was going to learn something new every day and put it on that page. And out of that came what you see today, which is the Dad Edge, which is this podcast, which is 3 books that I've written, and I'm working on a 4th, which is our community for men, which is Dad Edge Alliance, where we have 600 plus like-minded men who are inspiring each other and learning new skills around marriage and creating environments of psychological safety and patience, leadership, all these things that are so important to us. And it came in one of the darkest moments possible. So here's my response to anybody out there that you wish you had more patience with your kids, or you want to respond with calm in the moment versus an angry reaction to where you yell, scream, or you do something like I did and you hit. You do something physical. Again, not proud of that moment. Is you have to surrender, number one, to the fact that you are always going to have stress in your life. You'll always have professional stress in some way, shape, or form, even if you love what you do. You can love 80% of what you do and not really enjoy the 20% that comes with it. It's still going to create stress, but that's not an excuse to lose your cool, right? The same time, we're going to have other stresses in our life. Maybe it's with our health. Could be physical, could be mental, could be emotional, could be within our marriage, could be within our friendships. It could be anything. It could be with our kids. There's always going to be stress present, no matter what. And this gentleman mentioned in his email that, hey, based on what I just did, it's time to find a new job. I would argue that. I would really argue that. I would say this: if you don't love what you do, then yes, go out and find something that you love to do. Many of us feel so trapped. I have to do this job that I hate, or I have to do a job that I hate because if I do something that I love and I make money at it, is that odd or is that not noble? That's not the case whatsoever. I can tell you, I work with men who do the work that makes them come alive professionally. There is nothing greater than when you can merge doing what you love and making an income for your family. There's nothing better. That's not to say you're going to love 100% of what you do, but there's nothing better. So I would argue with this man that that the cause of losing our patience is due to the fact that I have a high stress job. That's not that you need to keep those in 2 separate worlds. So what I can tell you is there are skills around patience. Patience is tied, it's basically the same thing as emotional resiliency. We don't expect a Navy SEAL to become a Navy SEAL unless he's gone through BUDS training, because he's learning the skills of mental toughness, emotional resilience, and the physicality of doing that job and graduating as a Navy SEAL. We wouldn't expect that a surgeon is going to operate on you successfully just because he feels that he wants to be a good surgeon but doesn't have the medical school, the residency, and the fellowship to do the procedure that on you that he needs to do, right? We don't expect that the average guy can go out and be a cop without spending 990 hours as a police academy cadet, learning the law, learning the skills of being a cop, learning how to interact with criminals, learning how to diffuse situations, self-defense, all these things. Yet for some crazy reason, right? And I don't understand it, even as I say it out loud. For some crazy reason, we think that patience and emotional resiliency should come naturally with our kids because we love them. That's not the case. Now, you have to have a foundation of love. That much is true. But there are skills within emotional resiliency and patience. And let me tell you this. Patience does not start in the moment of chaos. You've all heard the quote, we rise to the occasion. We rise to the occasion. That's not true. What actually happens in the moment is we default to our training. And if you really look at the example of the surgeon, does he rise to the occasion to operate on you without training? Absolutely not. He's good at what he does. He's good at that craft because of the training. A cop doesn't rise to the occasion of defending himself or defending someone else. He will default to his training, right? Same thing with a Navy SEAL. No one just goes to the Navy and becomes a SEAL because they have to default to their training. They don't rise to the occasion. That's the same thing in parenting. That's the same thing with patience. Patience actually starts from the moment your feet hit the ground in the morning. You have to have a very solid morning routine because if you enter your morning into chaos, like many of us get up at the same time as our kids, you don't have that space for yourself, reflection, maybe it's exercise or something to help ground you into that day. Or we look at our phones. For the love of God, please stop doing that. Do not look at your phone for the first hour to hour and a half that you are awake. Because what happens is when you look at your phone, you're on social media, maybe you got an email, maybe a text, you're on someone else's agenda now. Or you're looking at somebody else's amazing life and their highlight reel that, by the way, is usually not true on social media. We immediately start the day in a fight or flight response because of these devices or because of we're reacting to our kids. We never take the time for ourselves. So that's the morning. We also have to have the skills of when stress starts to build throughout the day. Maybe it's in our work life, like the guy who emailed me. And what to do with that stress during the day so we don't let it spill over into the evening. The other thing that we have to have skills around is when we quote unquote try to rise to the occasion when our kids are acting a fool, like this guy who emailed me, his 3-year-old, and he screamed and yelled. You're not going to rise to that occasion because in that moment, you're in an emotional reactive state that you have to get in front of. You have to have skills and techniques in order to create space where you can respond to that chaotic stimulus versus react, yell, scream, or even spank like I did. It is possible. I know this sounds crazy, but a couple skills that I teach, and I actually have a course on this, it's our patience masterclass. A couple things you can do in the moment. I list about 20 different things in that course, but here's a couple. If you wiggle your left thumb and try to wiggle your right pinky toe, it's hard to do. Now, granted, that's a very simple thing, but what that does is that causes space. It causes a distractionary space where you're focusing on something else, even if it's only for 3 to 5 seconds, before you have a knee-jerk reaction, do what I did, spank, or what this gentleman did, scream, yell, and now you're guilty. You have so much guilt and shame you don't know what to do with. There are ways that you can interrupt the pattern of your reaction, create space, and then be calm in the moment. And I teach that actually in this course. The other thing too is this. Listen, we're human. We're going to mess up. But there are 6 things that we can do from the beginning of our day until we get home that we can implement into our days and become a better handler of stress. We can actually master emotional resilience, and we can build that into our day. We don't know how to do it. And through over 750 podcast guests, all the books that I've read, every single advice and tactic that I've seen in Dad Edge Alliance, I've literally combined all of those things into a patience course that's less than 37 minutes. And you can learn these skills. But here's the thing about being human. In this course as well, we are going to mess up. We're going to lose our cool. We're going to yell. We're going to scream. We might even spank, right? We are going to have mess ups. In those mess ups, we have to have a template of how are we going to debrief so we can win the next time. In other words, looking at what we've created in that course and the steps to take to build emotional resilience versus lose it throughout the day. Where did I go wrong? Where did I miss the day here? And what can I do differently? So, hey, look, did I do my morning routine? Did I check my phone within the first 60 minutes and, respond in an angry manner to this person? Or I was fired up because I saw somebody on social media having a better moment with their kids than me, and I felt terrible and shamed, and I'm not up to the task of being a parent. All these tiny little micro things that happen throughout the day can eat away at us. So being able to identify, hey, what did I do wrong here, and what could I do differently next time? Having that template of an after action review, because that's the last module, and understanding where did I go wrong. Because here's the thing, and I want you guys to really listen to this. If you're losing your patience, chances are it's not your fault. You are just building in, you're doing the things that every single person has done before you. That's how my parents parented me, so I'm going to parent them this way, even though it's not fulfilling. It's not necessarily our fault that we don't have the skills. It is your fault if you don't do anything about it, though. Because being able to respond in the moment versus react is not a feeling. It's not. It's a skill. And the good thing about skills is you can constantly practice them, you can constantly hone them, and you can constantly learn them. It's the most important thing about patience. All right, so if you guys are interested in this course, I feel very compelled to help as many men with this skill as possible. So here's what I'm going to do. If you've listened to this show, you want to take advantage of this offer, please do it. Our patience course is $197. If you are listening to this show and you're like, yep, I'm ready to do this and I'm ready to learn because I'm sick and tired of losing my patience, constantly being in a fight or flight response, maybe not always, but sometimes. And I want to be better about responding to my kids with a little bit of compassion, a little bit of grace, because I hate the feeling of shame and guilt when I lose my cool. If you head on over to thedadedge.com/patience, that course is $197. Put in the coupon code patience, and I will knock 50% off of that. And you can enjoy taking this course for half the price and learning the skills. So I feel compelled to do that because to be honest, it's hard reading these emails, and it's hard seeing guys post up in the Dad Edge group on Facebook where we have 15,000 men about moments like this, because we make moments like this and skills like this way too complicated when they're actually very, very simple. And we can have the outcomes that we really want the majority of the time. And in the small, rare times, uncommon times where we lose our cool, that's why I've implemented that after action review so we can learn all the time. So head on over to thedadedge.com/patience. Put in the coupon code patience. You'll get 50% off that. Let me get to my next situation here, which is failure. Failure is something that it terrifies a lot of us. A lot of us won't go out and actually do something because we're terrified of failure. Maybe it's trying to get healthier. I don't really want to go in the gym because what if I only do it for 2 weeks and then I drop off? Or what if I want to start that business and it fails? Or what if I do this, and this, and then it fails? I want you guys to think about something here that is bigger than you and bigger than us. Our kids are always watching us, always, and they learn from us. They learn more from watching us than they do from what we say, right? So whatever we tell them, they're actually watching our actions more. Kids learn by example. So if they're watching you and you're terrified of failure and you're not open to taking risks and you're not open to maybe learning what we learn from failure, guess what they're going to do? The same thing. We have a saying in my house, fail fast, learn quick. Fail fast, learn quick. And that attitude and that quote pushes us to do things that we'd otherwise be terrified to do. I get it, man. I used to be terrified of failure too. And when I did fail, I would beat myself up relentlessly. So I got an email from a listener saying, hey, do you have any advice for me? I went to a job interview. I totally flopped the job interview. It was awkward. It was terrible. It was a job I really wanted. It was an increase in pay. And I literally face planted the interview. I have let my family down again. I have let myself down again. I have failed again. What's the point? That was the premise of the email. And I get that because I used to feel the exact same way. So as it pertains to a job interview, I'll share a story with you guys. Back in 2010, I was working for a company and I was a sales rep, and there was a management position open that I really wanted. And I was a high achiever at my job in sales. I did very, very well. I was rep of the year a couple times. I always made my quota. So I was a performer and I was highly respected within my company. So when this job promotion came about for me to manage and lead a sales team of 10 people, I jumped at it and I was actually nominated for it. And here's what I can tell you. So I went into that job interview and I didn't really do my homework on the difference between sales skills, and leadership skills. And what I found in that moment was I was a poor leader. Didn't realize it at the time. I was like, oh, I'm a great performer, so I'll automatically lead people. The questions that came up in this interview, and I was interviewed by a panel of 3 people that I knew very, very well within the company. And they were excited about the interview, and so was I. I figured I had the job. This interview was only, we were only doing this to check the box, and then I'd have the job. What I can tell you is that was probably the longest hour and 15 minutes of my professional life. It was probably also the longest and most awkward hour and 15 minutes of the 3 people that interviewed me of their professional lives. I think within about 20 or 30 minutes, the questions that were coming, I did not know the answers to because I didn't have the leadership skills at the time. And the interview became so awkward. It became such a faceplant that there was part of me that just want to smile and be like, guys, let's just be honest with each other here. This interview is tanking hard and I'm falling on my face. So why don't we just all save each other the time and just say, hey, this job isn't for me right now. I didn't do that. I continued on and I literally left that interview completely and totally humiliated. I didn't even want to face the 3 people or even my coworkers that knew that I was going for that promotion. And I knew walking out of that interview, I didn't get it. Now I feel the pain of the guy who interviewed me, who that emailed me. And I know exactly how you feel. I'm failing again. I let people down again. I'm going to have to go home and tell my wife, I didn't get this job. I'm going to look like a failure to her. I'm not going to get that increase in salary. So I'm not going to be able to provide for my family like I thought I would. Right. So that was really tough. But here's what I can tell you what happened. I became humble and I asked myself, what did I learn from this experience? What can I do different next time? And that was just such an aha moment because I took the time to really research leadership. I went to conferences. I went through training. I read books. I did all kinds of things to become a better leader. And a year later, another management job came up. And guess who had to interview me for that management position? The same 3 people that interviewed me for the first time. So I took all those lessons. And I took the lesson of falling on my face and failing in that first interview. And I crushed that interview a year later and I got the job. Now, if I would have crawled under a rock and hid and beat myself up for failing and only focused on I failed, I let everybody down, that would have derailed me and distracted me from the good question I asked myself is, what's the learning here and what can I go learn and what can I go do? And when I asked myself that question, leadership training, read books, go to 2 conferences, learn these skills, even learn the skill of how to interview better. when I took on those challenges, that's when life got better. I mean, think about the disservice that I would have given myself, my company, and my family had I taken that same failures, those same things that I took into the first interview and I took them into the second and didn't take the time to learn. It would have been disastrous all over again. So what I would tell this gentleman and what I would tell all of us, because this is a strong reminder for all of us in the community, it's a strong reminder for me, is there is no failure. There's only learning. If you fail, there's lessons. Fail fast. Learn fast. Fail fast. Learn fast. There's always learnings in failure. Failure is not the end of the world. Make sure we're taking the lessons, right? And here's the other cool thing. When your kids see you doing that, when our kids see us in the student seat of constantly learning from failure, guess how resilient you're going to make them in life as it pertains to failure. And think about what their perception of failure and life lessons and learning and having a growth mindset is going to be as they grow up, because they've watched their father have that same attitude. So keep in mind, guys, within failure, there are these beautiful life lessons. Take that for what it's worth. So, final thing I have for you guys today is this. I said that there was a big announcement at the end of this show, and there is a big announcement. So in October of this year, 2021, October 21st, Thursday, October 21st, and Friday, October 22nd, we are doing our third annual Dad Edge Summit here in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, in 2020, we had this whole thing planned, and of course the pandemic happened, and it is what it is. We had to postpone it. We postponed it till this year. What I can tell you is everything happens for a reason, and I'm really excited to do it this year versus last year because of this. Over the past 18 months, there has been more stress and uncertainty than years past. We haven't seen a pandemic in over 100 years, and it's made people scared, fearful, stressed, uncertain. The suicide rate has skyrocketed. Divorce has gone up. Domestic violence has gone up. Unfortunately, a lot of people out there are crumbling. But one thing I can tell you is if we're eager to learn skills within our marriage, within our kids, within leading ourselves, within our own health, life does get better. And one thing I can tell you is the men that have been doing life with us in the Alliance over the past 18 months actually continue to thrive, even though we've been in a season of darkness. And it's all because we don't rise to the occasion. We default to our training, even in high stressful situations. So here's what we're going to do at Dad Edge Summit. And then I'm going to give you the killer logistics. We are going to help you create a vision and a plan around creating an extraordinary marriage with your wife, an incredible connection with your kids, where you're creating an environment of psychological safety, of memories that are of epic proportion. We're going to help you create a vision. We're going to help you create a plan and experiences that you will literally go to your deathbed with a smile. And so will your kids. Most importantly, you're going to be surrounded by about 200 men. That's where our tickets are going to sell out, that have the same drive, the same eagerness to learn these things, and different experiences where we can share within each other. So we are going to do that. Not to mention the fact we're also going to be teaching men how to be better leaders within their own minds and hearts, as well as their business or place of work. We're going to help you guys also optimize physical, mental, and emotional health. We're going to create a plan around that. Now, here are the logistics that are killer. And this is where I think everything happens for a reason. So as you guys know, I'm sure a bunch of you know who Andy Frisella is and Sal Frisella. Andy and Sal obviously own and run First Form HQ here in St. Louis. And many of you guys know who he is, but we got an invite that nobody gets. Sal Frisella has invited everyone who's attending the Dad Edge Summit to kick this thing off at First Form HQ. at First Form HQ here in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, for those of you guys who don't know about First Form headquarters, it is one of the sickest facilities I've ever seen in my life. It's like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory for adults. It is 250,000 square feet of nothing you've ever seen in your life. They have an auditorium that seats 250 people. On Thursday morning, we're going to kick this event off there, and we are going to be providing transportation, not to worry. We're going to be kicking off a vision for what the event is going to be with breakfast. Sal Frisella is going to be there. I'm going to be there. Andy may or may not make an appearance. I'm not really sure. It all depends on if he's in town. And we're going to create an incredible experience there. We're then going to bus everybody back downtown to downtown St. Louis. The rest of the event, half a day on Thursday and then all day Friday, is going to be held at the Marriott Grand, downtown St. Louis, where we actually have a conference room on the 20th floor that has a 360-degree view of the city. And if you've ever been to any event, most events are high energy, but you're in the seats and you're listening to speakers. That's not what we do. That's not how we facilitate the Dad Edge Summit. We do have some speakers. However, everything that we do is experiential learning in breakout groups and workshops, to where you can literally leverage the experience and learnings of other men to incorporate into your own life and plan versus just taking information in from a speaker. So everything that we do is interactive. Thursday night, we're going to break, and we're going to allow men to go out on their own in whatever groups that they want. It's going to be amazing, and we are in walking distance of absolutely everything. So not to worry, or like maybe a $3 Uber ride. But all the cool places in downtown St. Louis are literally within walking distance of where we're going to be. Then on Friday, we are going to start at 9 a.m. We're going to break for lunch for probably an hour and a half. And then we are going to adjourn at 5 p.m. on Friday. You're going to leave this event so invigorated, so focused, with a vision and a plan of exactly what you're going to do over the next 15 months to the end of 2022 in all the areas that I mentioned. You are going to create more relationships and connections with other men than you probably ever have before. The other thing that I'll address here too is that if you feel guilty about leaving your family to be a better man or husband or father just for 2 days, do away with that guilt, because guess what? Everybody feels that guilt, because that's the question we ask when you first get there. How many of you feel guilty for being here for 2 days? There's a difference between going to something like Dad Edge Summit, where you're going to hone all these skills and come back a better man, versus going to Mexico and drinking with 5 dudes, right? You're going to become a better you, a better leader in all those areas because you did this. The last thing I'll say is this. For those of you guys who are flying out Saturday morning, I'm going to be hanging out with all of you guys on Friday night. We're going to pick a place and we're going to go out and have some fun on Friday night. You can find all the details. Oh, there's one more thing too. All the details over at thedadedge.com/2021 summit. 2021 summit. SUMMIT. We're doing something else that we've never done in years past. The tickets for the summit have always been the same price. They're $597, but we're doing something a little different this year. If you want to buddy up with somebody, we welcome that. There is an option that you can buy 2 tickets for $997, pay $200 less total. Each man saves $100. Upon checkout, you just identify the name of the person. That's all you do, that you're buddying up with. And then the other person just reimburses you the difference. Super easy, but we're allowing men to buddy up with people this year that we haven't in years past. So gentlemen, that's all I got for you today. Remember to hone your patience. Patience is a skill. It's not a feeling. We don't rise to any occasion. We default to our training. You got to keep that in mind at all times. Also, when it comes to failure, you can either beat yourself up for failure or ask yourself the powerful question, which is, what did I learn here? What did I learn from this failure? That's when the good things come. That's when the solutions come. That's when the grace also comes as well. For all the show notes, head on over to thedadedge.com/Friday12. Again, thedadedge.com/Friday12, the number 12. Gentlemen, go out, live legendary. Take care.